Hey, what's up guys, Rob of Rule of Two Review here, and I've been really needing to make a video about Metroid Prime Federation Force. We all know it's a really hot button topic, it's a very controversial game. It was a big deal of Nintendo's E3 digital event, and everyone is flipping pissed about that game. I have been really angry about that game. You've heard me talk about it a little bit on some of my E3 review videos throughout that week and after the digital event when I reviewed it. And I'm like the world's biggest Metroid fan. I love, everyone claims to be a huge Metroid fan. I'm a huge Metroid fan. I love all the games. I even thought Other M was fantastic. Not the best, but it's a really good game. And Metroid Prime, the first one, is my favorite game of all time. Without question, my number one game I've ever played is the original Metroid Prime. So the announcement and reveal of Metroid Prime Federation Force in the midst of Nintendo's completely underwhelming and not awesome digital event was a pretty tough pill to swallow, and I discussed how it made me really, really angry because we obviously should have gotten a real Metroid game, not to mention a bunch of other really good games, but we got none of that. We got Amiibo Fest, and we got Animal Crossing games, and we got Yokai Watches, and we got all these other just dumb things. And Metroid Prime Federation Force kind of was just more salt in the wound that was the really horrible digital event from Nintendo at E3 this year. So, being the world's hugest Metroid fan, as I like to claim myself to be, I, of course, have a lot of opinions on Metroid Prime Federation Force, and they've started off incredibly negative, and I've lightened up a little bit on the game. I'm still not in love with the idea, and I still maintain that the fact that it was announced without any other good games and without a traditional true Metroid game like we were expecting, that's the real reason that that game has been a problem, and I maintain that that's why it still makes me very angry. But I have lightened up on it a little bit, and I'm going to get into that in a moment. But the reason I'm talking to you about this game today is because Reggie recently came out with a quote earlier this morning where he mentions that Nintendo really knew to expect or anticipate a pretty serious fan backlash, basically, from the reveal of that game. And I find that information to be interesting. Whether or not I fully believe it, I don't 100% know. I think that there's some truth to it, but I would have to think that at the end of the day, they never would have expected how serious and how strong the negative feedback to that game reveal was going to be. I think to some degree, Nintendo thought that it was going to be something that would please people and get everyone excited. And they just weren't prepared for, the fact that it showed up in the middle of a press conference that was already not good. So it only just made the whole situation worse, like I said. Now, he came out, like I said, saying, we anticipated that this game wasn't going to be the traditional Metroid game that a lot of fans were expecting, and we know that, but we're prepared that the game is going to still be good and still impress when it releases, yada yada. He had a couple of quotes that I want to actually read so I can discuss what he said. So he said, in terms of opportunities for improvement, there are games where you need to have hands-on time to really appreciate. Certainly, Metroid Prime Federation Force is one of those types of games. We anticipated that consumers would say, where's Samus? And where's my traditional Metroid Prime? We anticipated that. And he goes on to further say, as I walked the floor and talked to people who were playing Blast Ball, they're loving it. They're excited about it. They're excited about the controls. One of our challenges at Nintendo always is how we do communicate the charm and appeal of a game to people who don't get a chance to play it. It's always a challenge. I say with Federation Force, we may have fallen a little short in communicating what the charm is of that game. Good news, we'll have lots of other opportunities to address that and get people to experience it hands-on. We think they're going to come away in the end feeling like it's a lot of fun. So, he says a lot there. He's hinting at a lot. It's obviously a large amount of damage control. There is no doubt. I think that, like I said, a minute ago, I think they probably could have potentially expected that it wouldn't really impress a lot of people as much as they would hopefully want, but I think that they thought it was going to be a much less severe version of what they got. So he's going back to what they had to say when they were first showing off the Wii before anyone really got to pick that up, which was, you may kind of get it when you see it, but you don't really understand it until you get the controller in your hand and you actually see what it's like to play. And in that respect, I'll agree with him. And for all we know with Metroid Prime Federation Force, maybe that's the case, I think that's the case with all games, though. That's really the key here is that any game looks like it looks, but it's always about how it plays once you're playing it. And there's no reason to think that Federation Force should be considered any different. Like I said, I was making the Wii comparison a little bit ago, and I think that's I know what he's getting at when he's like, oh, you got to really get your hands on it to, and I talk to people who are playing it and they're loving it. And I feel like, granted, it did work with the Wii and even the Wii U, but it's so much different when it's a platform and a piece of hardware as opposed to a game. And the reason people are angry at Metroid Prime really isn't the playing aspect. It's what the game represents and it's what the game is. So he mentions people saying, where's Samus and where's my traditional Metroid Prime game? Yeah, those things remain intact no matter how fun the game may be. And that's what I was going to get at when I said my opinion on the game is lightening up a little bit, because the more I think about it, the more I know Nintendo's game design, and I can look at the game and say, you know what? I know the game is going to be fun. The game's going to be a fun goddamn game to play. I know it. And maybe it hurts to admit it because we all want it to be something else. But at the end of the day, if you were to take the Metroid Prime name off of it, the Metroid name, I should say, off of it, and you just look at it as this weird co-op multiplayer sort of thing with these robot shooter things, like, okay, it looks like a pretty fun game. I don't know how meaty it's going to be, but I think that the actual mechanic is probably going to be cool. But the point is, the further point I should say is, even though I can admit that maybe that game is going to be fun, and maybe I shouldn't be that angry at it, and, whatever, as long as they're making a new Metroid somewhere in the back of Nintendo, then maybe it's okay that this game exists for now, provided they give us a brand new Metroid in the next year. They need to reveal that. But again, like I said, the problems that we all have with this game, the lack of Samus, the lack of traditional Metroid Prime, I keep saying Metroid Prime, Metroid story and feeling and exploration and puzzles and solo missions and all these things, that stuff doesn't change no matter how fun this game is. Blast Ball isn't going to make this game any better. And playing as these little weird chibi humans that are nobody and these robots that are nothing isn't going to make this game any more like a Metroid game. So I feel like it does kind of show that Nintendo and Reggie don't quite understand why people are angry about this game. But he also can't outright say, like, okay, we fucked up, this game blows, never mind, we're not going to release it. He can't do that. He needs to maintain some positivity about the game. He needs to maintain that Nintendo has faith and conviction in this game. It is very important. That is part of his job. It is literally in his job title. If you were to write down Reggie's responsibilities for the company he works for, that would be in his job responsibility. That he has to do good PR without lying about it. And again, I'm sure he's not lying in the sense that this is probably a fun game. So I don't think he's doing it a disservice. And he's got to say, hey, the games we make, we believe in. And we believe in Metroid Prime Federation Force. I don't think Reggie's doing anything wrong here. I think he's actually doing the right thing. And it makes me feel good to hear him and Nintendo say, we recognize people are upset because there's no Samus. And they are upset because it's not a traditional Metroid game. Because to me, it means that they're hearing the actual complaints. Even if it doesn't fix this game, that's fine. If they understand a real Metroid game is what people are still wanting, and it's why we're mad at this game, it means that they know that they need to deliver that to us. And I feel like our voices will still have been heard, even if Nintendo says, we believe this game is a good game, and they're not going to change it, and they're still going to release it. Like, they have to do that, and that's okay. I still think that they're hearing the message, and so that's kind of really my thoughts on this game. Like, in summary, I maintain that I'm angry about this game. I'm angry at the manner in which it was revealed, not so much at the game itself. People bring up the Metroid Prime pinball thing and, Metroid Prime Hunters, and they're not like regular Metroid games and yada yada. All very true, but there are a couple huge differences. A basic difference is that, yes, Samus is in those games. You play as Samus, and Samus is represented in the pinball game. The other huge difference is that those games weren't being released in a dearth of Metroid experiences. Metroid felt relevant. It hadn't been that long since we'd seen a Metroid game prior. They were releasing within that time frame of the Metroid Prime trilogy, which was from 2002 to 2007. That's 5 years right there. In 5 years, we got the 3 Metroid Prime games, and we got Hunters and Pinball. So 5 Metroid. Oh, and I think we probably had Zero Mission, right? And not even that, Fusion. So because Fusion released the same day as Metroid Prime. Oh my God. So in a 5-year span, this is why Nintendo, in case you're listening to this is why people are mad about Metroid Prime Federation Force. In the same 5 years that we've been waiting for a Metroid game since Other M released, you were able to release Metroid Prime, the best game ever made, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Prime Pinball, Metroid Prime Hunters. I think that was 8 games. I didn't actually count, but I think it was like 7 or 8 games. What the fuck? That's great. That was like the pinnacle of Metroid. Like, it was just so great, all those games. And here we are, and now it's been the same 5 years since Other M, which, although I really like that game, obviously we know a lot of people didn't. So they need to redeem Metroid and do better things for a lot of people. And this is not the game to bring Metroid back to the gamers, to the players. This is not what we wanted. So, again, in summary, that's why we're mad. That's why I'm mad. That's why this game deserves to receive the flack we've been giving it. But at the same time, I believe that it's going to be a fun game. Maybe I'll check it out as we see more about the modes that it offers. And like I said, a lot of these quotes, even though it's a damage control PR spin, I think it still shows that they're acknowledging what people actually want out of a Metroid game. And as long as they know why we're mad at this, I feel like it's going to help lead to the Metroid game that we truly want and deserve sooner than later, and that's assuming that they're not working on it. Half of me thinks they are working on something. The other half of me thinks that they're not. Yes, there was the Metroid Prime quotes where someone said, oh, I'd really like to make a Metroid Prime, and people got excited about that. To me, that tells me they're not making Metroid Prime, so don't get excited for Metroid Prime. But Metroid Prime is only one series within the Metroid lineage. It's not all of Metroid. Gamers nowadays forget that, the gamers who didn't grow up on the original Metroid games. To me, Metroid is a couple of different things. It's 2D play, it's first person, and it's the first and third person, like Other M. So there's a couple, and there could even be a new one that we hadn't even thought of, so who knows. So just because it's not Metroid Prime doesn't mean they're not maybe working on another Metroid game, and I'm totally okay with the next real Metroid not being Prime. Metroid Prime, it died anyway. Samus defeated Metroid Prime, so unless there was another Prime, or I don't even know how they would continue the story of Prime into a Prime 4. To me, if they revealed a Prime 4, it's only going to mean spiritually in terms of gameplay and tone and graphical style. It's not going to mean that it's actually a true sequel to Metroid Prime, because that story ended. So anyway, I'm going into a tangent, and I could just talk about Metroid forever because I get excited. You've heard me talk about my feelings. You've heard me talk about Metroid Prime Federation Force. You've heard what Reggie said and how Nintendo's reacting to the negative feedback to Federation Force. So, that's it. What do you guys think? I want to hear if you guys think that what I said makes sense. Do you think that Reggie did a good thing? Do you think that you just don't... Some people are still mad at Reggie, like, oh, it's bullshit, Reggie, we don't believe what you're saying, blah, 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 because everyone's kind of still butthurt about Nintendo's poor showing, and I think it's time that we move on from that, but whatever, that's just me. Share your thoughts. I definitely want to hear what you think. Like, rate, and share the video and all those good things. And, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you guys next time on another video.